What I'm always curious is, as you're out there on the fundraising trail, regardless of these meetings are successful or not, what are some of the unexpected challenges that you've had to contend with along the way?
There's a lot of those on all angles. So for me, being a topical, it's very hard to get out there, and I kind of explained a little bit about it in the beginning. So you sell the product and it gets to the shelf, but now you're working. You took months to get this buyer to say, okay, we're getting it in. Now they don't care about you. Now it's the bud tender. Now just sell your stuff. That's the hardest part when you're a brand that they don't know yet, and you're on your first 10 stores, you're in your first 20. Then it gets a little easier because now you have a model to go by. But the hardest part when you're starting with no capital is being able to make all that product and then move it fast enough to pay your people, pay your operating costs, and then get the next batch going. That's been the hardest part with floating without money.
Sure.
And that's what makes it tough. And then I got to go check myself and go, no, it's not the investor's fault. Stay focused, right? And then move on.
Yeah.
So that raw work you got to do and all the executive stuff you have to do, it gets hard. And then there's all kinds of stuff that hits. Laws change all the time. Yep. New stuff you have to do. Here come renewals. So it's everything about this is tough. You have to have faith. You got to stay in it and keep running on your plan. Don't get off that plan because the investors will see that. They'll see a weakness. And if you know what you're talking about, they're going to invest in you. But the hardest part is the cannabis industry just finding itself over the last 6 years, even more, right? So.
Exactly.
Most definitely. And to David's point, the laws, like the regulations, has been the hugest part for me. I started this journey in 2019. I was partnered with the larger company. They raised tens of millions of dollars, and people were trying to, buy licenses from us for $1 million, $2 million. Fast forward a few years, I have a retail license. I have an annual license on the state and city level. I've taken hundreds of meetings with investors, exaggerating a bit, but I'd say around like 75 meetings with investors, and I'm still not funded to open my store yet. So in a few short years, the market can go from a bunch of people, just throwing money at cannabis to now you have large MSOs leaving the state, that's most known for cannabis cultivation and consumerism and culture and all of that. So I would say the legality of cannabis has been the most unexpected. Yeah. Not only on a city, a state, but a federal level as well, because a lot of what happens on the federal level influences investor sentiment.
Definitely.
In the beginning, people were really hot. You could find investors who were just looking to give you money. They didn't need to see your pitch deck or anything like that. Now it's like you probably have to take 10, 15 meetings before somebody is even interested in considering a small amount of equity and a small amount of capital investment, and they want to see somebody else who's potentially invested in your company. And if you don't have that, it's kind of like, all right, well, you have a really great idea, but the market doesn't match up for what you're trying to accomplish here.
Oh, yeah. There's so much of that. There's investors. Well, I'm willing to write a check, but I want to be your lead. So circle back once you have a big lead check, like maybe half your round. Then I'll fill the rest in. Yeah, that's always the most common thing you end up getting back. But I mean, there's so many other things that people overlook. Even what time of year it is. Investors with back to school and vacations at the the end of August, that does play a factor. You think checks are getting written after MJ Biz before the holidays? No, that's getting kicked until early next year. So yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting dance. So you did speak with some strategics. I was just a little more curious about that. Do you speak with any other operators who are interested in making an investment into your organization? And if so, why did you choose to either move forward or say no?
I would say because operators understand what it takes to not only stand up this business, but to make it successful somewhat. It seems like success right now is breaking even, which a lot of operators aren't doing. A lot of operators are behind on their bills. They owe a bunch of different brands. They owe a lot in taxes, but they are the ones most equipped to offer some investment because they're a bit more realistic than, say, people who are from out of state, from a different market, or who have no cannabis experience at all. I think the biggest thing will be to lean into the community, if you're looking for investment, because California is different from every other market. So if you have an investor who's looking to partner with you and go in, you can lean on each other for the experience that you do or don't have. Like for instance, I've pitched people who are from Northern California, and they understand that, you know, this is where the majority of consumption and retail sales happen at, but they don't understand what it actually looks like on the ground. And the same for me. I don't know what it looks like up in Humboldt for the most part. So if I'm trying to partner with somebody on establishing a brand or getting them to invest in my store, that goes a lot longer way than somebody who knows nothing about the cannabis industry at all, who you kind of have to, you know, educate and hold their hand along the way. And you may kind of lose them, you know, kind of like
those are the first ones who get spooked too when they see one headline that they don't even click into and say, well, I mean, it looks like, case in point, you know how many hemp beverage companies had all the traction in the world, seeing literally every single time they got an order, it doubled over the last year or so. And then now every single one of those partner conversations and investor conversations are, hey, we're on pause due to what's happened here in California. I mean, it can change by the day and just completely derail anything you have going. This is why cannabis is so damn hard, and it's so damn hard to find investors that understand that this is a game worth playing, and there is real value in this industry. And yeah, it sucks that it's on us to have to show it, but I'd love to hear your answer on the strategic.
Well, I could touch one of my first relationships for business. I moved up to Humboldt in 2017. I went up there to start making relationships because I knew that's where a lot of the majority of the cannabis was grown, and I have a patent on making paper from the stalks. So anyway, I'll touch on that. But so that's why I was there, and I was sitting with a farmer. We were sitting there on the mountain looking at his farm, and he had already got my creams. He had already had a doctor tell him, "What is this? Wow, this is great." And him and I were just joking around, and he's like, "Hey man, wouldn't you like to take all these beautiful ladies and put them in that cream?" And so everything that I have as a relationship has naturally just fell into place. No money, but I got a farm. That's a big thing right now with a lot of people going under and not having access. You still have to have access to your farm, right? So that keeps me vertically integrated. And that came naturally. That came off of just somebody believing in my product and having somebody that he trusted tell him, now we're partners and I get first right refusal on all the farm. And now I showed him how to keep his farm going because there's this thing called fresh frozen. That's the next game for live rosin extracts. And so that's how we naturally, like, we can do that stuff, but you always still need the capital until you don't anymore.
I mean, this is where opportunity lives in cannabis, is you filling in someone else's gaps. And like I said, that can be as simple as my guy's better at graphic design. I'm happy to help you with this, or it could be something, you know, far more robust. Be creative. The amount of companies out there open to collaborations is mind-blowing, you know, and it's not just in cannabis. You can find, you know, major film and musicians and stuff who will lend their likeness all day because it's fun, because they care about it. Sure, it can be hard to say, oh, here's what the returns might look like for you, you know, because it's usually a percentage, but, you know, these opportunities, you know, they exist. It never hurts to ask, especially if it's a brand you really admire. I mean, look at case in beverage points, you know, Maison Bloom, you know, they're using Sonoma Hills Farms flower, specifically Pink Jesus, strain specific. That's their big marketing angle. Would never have happened if they didn't just go out and say, Sonoma Hills Farms, you feel like the cannabis version of our beverage company. You care about culinary. You have all these like chefs and stuff affiliated with it. We're both in California. This seems like a win-win. And they go, we couldn't agree more. Let's do it. We'll power your stuff. I mean, there's plenty of these, and you'd be surprised at how many of the big brands who want to appear cool and community driven are willing to get in bed with you know, a smaller company that would on paper would have no business forming such a collaboration. But it's because their founders were bold and they talked to the right people and they've said, you know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You know, what are you gonna do for community? Do something with us. We give you a quick way to do that. I mean, look how many people Last Prisoner Project has been partnered with in the past couple of years. You know, everybody's giving these guys money, slapping their logo left and right because they've seen it work. So I'd love to hear on collaborations on anything or similar on that.
So you guys are aware that there's like the companies that grow mass amounts, and they white label for a lot of the other companies. There's only a few of the big ones that, and then they're starting to come out and have their own name, right? And then there's people that'll make pre-rolls for you and make vape pens for you. So my way of getting creative was, okay, David, go in there, show all these 30 retailers that they're making money now in that wellness section, and that the wellness section is jumping and they've never seen those numbers before. Then go to a chain that says, hey, you know, maybe you can make those for our brand, because there's not a wellness. Pop and Barkley and Mary's and these guys are not making stuff for other people. So if they see, you have to get creative. So then I have a store that goes, hey, we want to go 7-Eleven, but we don't have anyone making creams. You make this great stuff. That's something I might have to do, is collab and start making them for the retail chains, because then I'll have presence in most of the stores if I could do it that way. So that's kind of a strategy I'm working on right now. And then I have a distro. I distribute all my own stuff because I have a distribution license. I don't want to have to do that. I'd love to have a big distro. They're starting to pay attention now. But I had to do the work to get into those stores and then show that this is working and it's making money. And that's hard to do in cannabis. There's a lot of competition. But now it's opened the doors for retailers to come and say, hey, can you put my name on that cream? Yeah. Why not? You know, if it works out as a collab. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and pivots happen all the time. I mean, that's one thing that's clear here is, you know, we've started off in different areas, and, you know, obviously now the product's different, but there's a reason for that. There's a reason where in this space, everyone is still figuring things out, and I guess the tolerance for potential pivots is probably a lot higher than you're going to find elsewhere. For instance, you know, Guild Extracts, super well-known brand, did a lot of big partnerships. Ease had them on there. Well, guess where they make their money now? Their patent for THCA powder. That's all they do. B2B patent strategy. Don't have to go store to store. Their whole approach has changed. And more importantly, all of their team members are like, we can finally breathe easy again, because, you know, my day-to-day has just become something where this is almost a passive income stream for me, allowing me to go focus on new projects. So that ended up being a win-win for their investors, for the team members. You got to look at some of these situations and how they played out, like what David went through, and say, okay, this is a similar journey that I might be on. What tips and tricks can I pull? And that leads me over to Amir as well. Values alignment is something that I want to focus on, because I think that's so critical, especially, you know, with social equity founders. If there's a partner, an investor, what are you doing to the vet that this person has the same values? They're not there to exploit you and fucking, you know, just not going to be a good fit in the long term.
Have lunch with them, have dinner with them. You know, that's the easiest way to get to know somebody, is to see how they operate in a normal setting, you know, because they may be telling you everything you want to hear and they got the right amount of capital to be in business with you. But, you know, if they don't know how to treat the waiter or the people that are serving them at the Starbucks or something like that, you know, or if they have a, you know, just so happen a personal assistant with them, or, you know, they kind of berate them in some type of way, listen to how they talk on the phone. Like, these are like little cues that this may not be the person that you want to marry, you know, because when you take people's money, it's a marriage, you know, regardless if it's $5,000 or $500,000. So you really want to make sure that it's somebody that you could see yourself being in business with, either for the long haul or at least strategically for the amount of time that you have in order to give them return on their investment.
Yeah, you hit it on the button. Perfect. It's not about the money at the end of the day, even though you need it. It's about the people you're working with. They have to believe in you, and they have to be a respectful person. And that's hard to find out while you're trying to negotiate things. So yeah, that is a good strategy, to get in with them somewhere where you can hang out with them and actually watch them converse, see who they are.
Yeah.
A lot of fraud people. There's a lot of people out there trying to harm people like us.
Yeah, that's what, go for it.
I was going to say this, being a social equity partner, these investors are people with money. They're used to being the majority equity owner. They're used to having all of the power, having all the control. What we're doing here with social equity, we're completely turning the way the business operates on its head, and that makes them very uncomfortable to, you know, for the law to say, hey, I have to maintain 51% of my company, and now we're in a negotiation where I'm trying to get $500,000 from you. It's going to come out of their body, you know, as because they've been conditioned to, okay, I have all the money in the world. I can invest in this company. I can change your life. You know, you want something from me, but yet you're talking to me like you have control. You have to understand that, like, going into these negotiations, they want to have control. You know, that's what they're used to. They want to run the company. That even if they don't know anything about cannabis, they want to put their people in there. That's just the nature of the game. So no, you have to be aware of that going into these negotiations and be okay with, again, owning your power as a social equity partner. We went through the years of the war on drugs. That's why we qualify for this. And that's what they miss a lot of the time, you know, because the law says that, oh, these people, they need to have priority processing for licenses, or they only get access to these licenses. Yes. You know how many people I've lost to the war on drugs to be able to qualify for this opportunity? I'd gladly get those people back in exchange for any amount of money or any amount of business success to qualify. But that's not the name of the game. And it's not always easy to convey that to people who have the money, you know, but it's necessary.
It's very true. And, I think, the investors are starting to wisen up, and, the key there is looking for ones who already understand what they're getting into. They've already have a successful track record of working with somebody that and trust. There's, due diligence is two-sided, as I think we've really focused on today. And the one fortunate thing is investors really like to party. So a lot of times they're down to smoke, they're down to drink, and it's very easy for you to hold back and watch them get a little bit too fucked up and see how they actually are. You see what kind of stuff they actually start talking about, see where their values are. I talked to an investor at Benzinga. This guy's from Ohio. Within 30 seconds, he started going on about his Cybertruck for 5 minutes. I was like, dear God, I don't care at all. Like, you're just flexing your Cybertruck. I don't care if you're the first one in Ohio to have it. It doesn't do anything to advance my day or this conversation. And I knew I was ready to bounce out of that conversation after those 5 minutes were up. So, that guy, clearly, that's what he cares about. Doesn't care about what's going on in California. Doesn't care about social equity. Cares about Elon Musk. So,
One more tip.
Yeah, go.
Always do a background check on your investors, because I know we always just, someone brought them in and they're going to give us money, so let's go. But no, you have to do a background check, know who you're going to get in front of first. That's what I've learned.
Google the hell out of them, and it's all of the weird DBAs and stuff they use for their shell coordinate. It is worth you spending a good amount of time to really flesh that out and see if you can uncover any skeletons. And like I said, if you have any investor friends, they're always the first ones to know. What do you know about that other firm? Why should I not work with them? They'll give you a laundry list every time,
Yeah, and if you're in cannabis, like if you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. That's where the community sort of coagulated, and a lot of these investors, they're either new to cannabis investing or they've been around a bit. So I'll just, if say you were an investor, I'd be like, hey, you ever heard of this person before? Or who is he invested in? Or who knows him? Like, where's he from? Oh, he's from Colorado? Okay, cool. I'll go to Colorado. Okay, I'll tap into that network. Hey, you're in Colorado. You ever heard of this person before? Like, you can get. Sometimes all you need is that little bit of nugget of information that somebody has. Oh, yeah, I don't like him. He just kind of wasted my time. He took my deck. He never called me back, type of thing. It's, okay, cool. So let me not even send my deck to this person, or let me send it to him, having something in mind that, like, this may be a complete waste of my time.
Yeah. I love I flew out to Chicago because we had 3 or 4 great pre-meetings with this fund. We sat down together with their CEO, and he walks into the building and he says, who the fuck are you guys? I've never met you. I've never seen your company. Why should I invest in you? And they were immediately like, what? We were literally with your COO yesterday, like, going through this. Now we get into the meeting with the top decision maker, and you've never even heard of us. So they were like, why did I fly to Chicago at all? This was a waste of my time and money. Thanks. So, you can really get burned without doing some of that due diligence. Talk to guys like me. That's the beauty of working at ArcView, as mixed bag of a firm that was. You got to meet a lot of these guys and see what they were like after dark, and which ones to stay the hell away from. So, next question here, I think is I want to get into some resources on your fundraising journey. What websites, what communities, what are some of those those key methods along the way that really helped your journey?
I would say anything that involves, like, in person was big. Before COVID, a lot of people were outside. It was a lot of industry events. It was a lot of trade shows. People went heavily into, the community organizing. I would say that's easier now because although you can find a lot of information online, it's different than somebody who's actually gone through it, who's an actual operator. They know the resources that will provide you the value that you're looking for. They can direct you to some new ones. Really just kind of immersing yourself. Like something I did in the very beginning, I started joining all of the newsletters for the Benzingas and I joined NCIA. I started networking at all of the association events. This is a people thing. This is a large industry, but a lot of it, just like everything else, is driven by people, and the relationships in cannabis are very tight knit, especially now that we've gone through all of these market cycles, and the people that are still here, it's like going to jail with somebody, or going through a traumatic experience with somebody. Like that bonds you to those people a lot more, so your experience becomes richer and you're able to extract a lot more value out of those relationships. So if I would have leaned on a resource, I would say get involved in the community, because cannabis people are not like any other people in any other industry, and you'll find that out rather quickly.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. I take a more grassroots approach where I'll touch any industry that's interested, because I'm in doing something. They can come in anytime. I don't really go chasing anymore. I don't do that. So I'll give out some of my samples to some people, and maybe out of 10 of them, 3 of them are wealthy, and they go, "Hey, where did you get this?" Then they bring them to me, and I have a physical meeting. Well, I background check them now, because I ran into a lot of people who, like you said, I'm sitting with somebody who says he owns this company. I call my friend Rocky, and he owns that company. He says, "Oh, I'm suing that guy right now." So much of that is taking you off track, right? So that's why I just prefer, they'll come to me if they like the product and somebody told them it was good and they got money. Now come see the horse. You want to bet on it? Bet on it. If not, get out of the way. I got to keep going, and that's what that's the attitude I have to have, because I do have the work done. Yeah. So.
Be aware of the middleman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The middleman is so prevalent in cannabis. It's like arbitrage, like, taking cannabis from here and trying to sell it in a state that's not legal yet. The middleman has killed more deals than
all the M&A stuff.
Poor pitch decks.
Yeah. too many brokers. It's one person on either side that facilitated the deal. Well, 2 months down the road, no, it's actually like 4 people on this side, like 3 on the other. They all want their cut. The deal's done. Seriously, deal's over with. That happens all the time.
They want more than the buyer and the seller sometimes.
They do. Yeah, 100%. Next question here, and it's just kind of a continuation. You obviously mentioned LinkedIn, which I could not agree more with. It is so powerful for building connectivity and community, and positioning yourself as a thought leader, which can go a long way with investors. But I want to know, especially given you have a brand, the role of other social media platforms. You taking advantage of any of this stuff? Twitter, X, Facebook, any?
When I go in and I do, I have a little table like this, have my products out, and I'm in the store already, so I'm letting people get the education about my product, and then I give them a BOGO and they can buy the product. While I'm doing all this, I get testimonials from people who had already bought the product. So they come in and I'll give them a little product sample if they can give me a testimonial, and those testimonials are priceless, because it's people going on the Instagram and saying, "Wow, my dad couldn't get up out of bed, now he could get out of bed and go to the bathroom. Thank you for this product. Oh, my bones were broke and the doctor said it healed back even better." Like, I'm not saying this is the people saying this. That's valuable. So just having the people have a platform to have a testimonial on your product. There's not that many products where people are going, "Oh, this is great." And so if you have it, it adds, because it's not me just saying it all the time. Get studies behind it. So, but yeah, that's how I use the Instagram. Absolutely. Right now. I don't use too much right now, because it's more just getting the retailer stores talking to each other. Yeah. Like, "Hey, West Coast, you guys keep that. Hey, DTPG, you like this one? I'm gonna get it too for the other one." And then it spreads that way. Yeah. It's more grassroots what I'm doing.
And we're seeing boxes and loyalty programs and some of this stuff really start to, take the forefront when it wasn't possible a couple of years ago. And I think both of you utilized that decently heavily, right? It's kind of the focus. Yeah.
You talking about?
Yeah. I mean, just like loyalty programs and subscriptions and yeah.
Yeah, BOGOs and
BOGOs. Yeah.
So you realize that people aren't buying. I kind of explained the companies before in wellness. We're kind of not giving a good product. It was cutting corners. People are getting aware of that now. So then they don't want to buy a topical over $100. Mm-hmm. What the heck? So you have to give them a $20 price point now. Boop. That helps. And then now they buy two and then they get one for $1, and then they tried it. Now they come back and buy the big one. That's what I have learned by going into these stores. And now I can train other people to do the PADs and be brand ambassadors, right? And so now that I got a distro looking at it, but I had to set all that up. I had to go get into the stores. I had to create a good product that has a good name behind it. It's a lot of work to do it.
And what is your relationship like with your investors? How often do you meet? Where do they add value outside of a check?
I think the most important part is transparency, regardless if they're in the industry or not. Is letting them know where you are in your journey. Because again, it doesn't matter what amount of money you're taking for them. It doesn't even matter if they have agreed to invest in your company yet. Just by the fact that you have their attention, really treat them like they're somebody who, not that you want to impress, but like you really want to get to know, because they may be able to add value in the area totally unrelated to the venture that you're in. A lot of the times these high net worth individuals, or they're very connected. You may be experiencing a problem that seems like something that's really huge in cannabis, but to them it may just be a phone call, to a senator or an assembly member, or somebody who invested in their last company. And even if they can't invest in it, it's always good to maintain a healthy relationship, because you never know when they may be able to come back around. And if you're still in this game, it shows determination and dedication. And I think David said it too. Managing that relationship and always being somebody that has integrity and showing that you're competent can go a long way with people, especially people with the money, in the sea of people who really aren't serious about this and who are just looking for a quick buck.
So I actually did acquire an investor this year, and this is my first investor I've ever had, and it was for the retail. But because I had already had all my other stuff, I had the components to have a fully integrated business. I was able to see when they come out and they go, 51%, 49, that doesn't mean anything. Okay. It's like, I have the patents, I have this, they're in the store now. I got all. So I was able to get a 70-30. So because you have more value. Yep. So if Amir wants more value, he can come over to my facility. We can start already getting ready to brand his own stuff, so that he can have a source where he makes his own brand and have a house brand in there, saving him when other brands fail. They're always going to go after your house brand. So that's how you vertically integrate, by working together. If I can manufacture stuff, why not make brands for all you guys? Cadre too. I'm getting ready to work with them and make them a live rosin and vape pen. It can happen. You just have to put the pieces together. But my investor I have now, I got him because he sees the value in everything we're doing. And so he's putting everything in. The language I use, I didn't ask for a certain amount. I kind of did. But what I did was, he has to fund this operation in order to get it to where it's making money. Like, we don't put a price thing. You just put, this is your job, and do you want to do it or no? And he did it. And so I have a great relationship with my investor. He trusts me, and I'm actually training him because I trust his business knowledge, and he just needs to catch up on the cannabis knowledge. So he's my partner on the retail. But for manufacturing, I'm just thinking it's funny how I had to do. I was working in other collectives. I was working as a consultant and running my business in order to keep my bills paid and keep my people paid while the business was growing. So I was doing other jobs, and now I was able to get it to where, a little bit. They don't know you're naked until the tide goes out, but you got to go with it. The tide.
I think you said something that's key too. A lot of social equity applicants, partners, as well as investors, as soon as they hear that, okay, by law, social equity people have to maintain 51%, that's immediately what they revert to. That's like, okay, cool. So I'm taking the 49% regardless of how much money I'm going to put up. Cannabis is the only industry where it doesn't work like that. Every other industry, it's all right, you're going to get the amount of equity based on how much money you put in. And although it may not have a valuation, that still may be more money than the investor want to put up. And a lot of social equity applicants, they don't really kind of have this as their background. So they immediately think, okay, I have to give up 49% of my company, when really you just kind of have to educate yourself about, the structuring of the entities, or, how you're going to draft the contracts, or what you're going to use the money for. At least that's kind of how it was for me. I didn't really know that I didn't have to give up 49% of my company. I could give up 15%. I can give up 20%. And a lot of that is learning on the fly, as well as becoming really buddy with the lawyers. You know, if they're, whether it's DCR's pro bono and low bono services program, or, you know, an investor that'll talk with you at a trade show, or, you know, like you said, anybody who's willing to give you a little bit of their time. Just that little bit of information goes a long way to somebody who's new to cannabis, who's new to business, you know, on any level.
I always like to ask this question, you know, what is one tip that you can give to every one of the founders in the audience today of something they could do today that's actionable, that's going to help move them in the right direction on their fundraising journey?
I mean, be aware of where you want to end up with all this and what you're doing, and know exactly each step, so you could rehearse it in your mind. That way, when you present it, it's like clockwork, like breathing. And so, like, just know what you're doing and the direction you want to go before you start involving other people. It makes it a lot easier.
I would say know how the laws are going to change January 1, 2025. You know, because a lot of what happens in this market is determined, well, everything that happens in this market is determined by the laws, but you never know how the laws are going to impact the business that you have or the business that you're trying to establish. Yep. It could either make it easier for you to open this type of business, or it can make it much harder, or the idea that you had could become obsolete. So I would say really knowing, okay, what are the laws like right now, either in my state, in my city? What are the laws going to be like in the next year? Because I maybe want to hold off on this fundraising round until, you know, summer of next year, because of what else? It might be easier. So the laws has changed a lot, but I found that was something I could always lean on, because, hey, this is solid. Regardless of what these people are saying or the economics not adding up, the law is the law right now until it changes, and that always informs you of how to act and, you know, create a strategy.
Yeah. And you've already heard mine, you know, basic typos and stuff, high-res images, clean those up, build a network at this event, meet some other founders that you can hop on a WhatsApp group with, you can hop on group calls with to kind of keep each other moving forward. I mean, that's why you pay those accelerators, but the secret is you can build it yourself very easily. If something doesn't exist, this is the one space that you can easily go out there and create it, and often find people that are going to partner with you on that journey. So I definitely want to ask, so our audience is aware, where can I find out a little bit more about each of you and your companies?
There's a website, there's an Instagram, powellscannabiscosmetics.com, and at Powell's Cannabis Cosmetics, and you'll see the different people talking about our product, how it works for them, and then there's a website that shows the stores you can get it at, and I still have to update that because I did real good this last couple weeks, picking up.
I like it. Yeah.
Finally.
So my store is still coming soon, actively pitching investors, going through a fundraising round. But you can find me anywhere on any social media, more so LinkedIn, because that's where our people like to hang out.
I love it. So as we're winding down, do you want to hand these out, or what do we can? So we have a little bit more information, of course, on Powell's, and but before we do, does anybody in the crowd have any questions for our esteemed panelists? Yes, we do. We got one. You got to yell this time. I can't get down. Yeah, want to take it?
I would say knowing that what the opportunity that you do have has value, especially because there are going to be people that try to take advantage of it. really understanding, like, okay, right now in the city of LA, there are specific license types that are only available to social equity applicants. If you have somebody who's looking to come into the state, they're either going to have to come into the city, they're either going to have to partner with somebody who's already operational, like a distressed asset business or something like that, or if they want a clean slate, they'll come find somebody like you. Now, there's a large pool of people who are willing to partner with these investors, but they may want to partner with you specifically, and that's how you stand out. You may not be somebody who's looking for a quick payday. You may be somebody who's looking to establish a business or establish a brand and stuff like that. So understanding that just by being a social equity partner, you do provide value, because a lot of investors in relationships, their primary thing is to be looking to devalue you and deleverage you and take your asset. So understanding that you have value by the law, period.
Yeah, he said it. You got the value, and you have to know you have the value. And all they do is try to devalue you. It's true. So do the things you can do to create more value. We'll work with other companies that are social equity, network with other social equity people. If we can put our assets together, we can be a little stronger. Those are the things I recommend, is working together. You know?
Consolidation's happening at all stages, all sizes of the industry. If you find somebody that your company really aligns with from a values perspective, and you see a way to build a better mousetrap together, build something that's a house of brands. For instance, like I have a buddy who has like a infused Jamaican jerk, and I was just like, dude, like tie in with the guy doing infused barbecue, tie in with the guy, build this whole then you can pitch the Krogers of the world and say, hey, here's our infused sauce offering, or right now, obviously, retail, but there's so much power in that community. And this is, like I said, is still early enough where you can pivot.
I have a little tip. So
add some.
So to what everybody's talking about, use our resources is a big thing. I have a delivery, and the only way that I can compete with some of the big storefronts in the area that have a large menu is to get with, if you have a delivery and you have a delivery, let's buy together. Let's use our capital to buy together, because we can't outbuy these huge companies that are buying hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product. But if we get together and we buy our inventory together, and there's 20 strong and 30 strong, and then that's building something else where now we have a little bit of control. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff is what we have to do in order to compete with these bigger companies.
I mean, easy answer is it has value if they know about you, and I think if there's some tips like writing some content, getting active on LinkedIn, journeying the positives and negatives of a social equity founder, that can be a source of other states not going through a program that faces those same challenges. It can help other people in New York, for instance, will read that and say, hey, not only do I understand these struggles, but she seems like somebody that, I'd like to partner with. I like so that she's speaking her mind. I think, it is such a weird echo chamber, and it's so many people pushing a lot of the same stuff that, the market really rewards those who are transparent about their experience, who are loud about their experience, and are connecting with the right people about it. I've seen it time and time again. I mentioned Seth Yakatan earlier. That guy was not a super prominent broker in this space 2 years ago. That guy went ham in the last year on doing nothing but spend his time several hours a day on LinkedIn, and now that guy's speaking on the main stage at the biggest events in cannabis, known as one of the most prominent brokers in the space because he put so much time into LinkedIn. So, it's a crazy thing, but this space is still so small when it comes to situations like this. Does my status have value? It all comes down to making the people aware of it, making the potential partners aware of it, and making it easy for them to get in contact with you. So, all right. Yep. Next one. I'll repeat the question. So, yeah, totally. So the gentleman said, talk to him before you leave if you're ready to put the plan into action. I'm sure you're going to get a line of everyone in here is going to want to talk to you. Probably more than they want to talk to me. They've heard enough of me for the last couple hours. Well, let's do it. Are there any other? Yes, there is one more question. Yeah. Sorry, one more time. Where do the feds stand on social equity? Well, I mean, we'll have to have that question again at the start of November, to see how things change in the next couple weeks. Yeah, good question, bud. Do you guys have an answer? There's no federal social equity programs.
As of right now, the DEA has a meeting on rescheduling cannabis for like December 2nd or 3rd. But as far as social equity on the federal level, there are a number of, what do you call that?
There's a lot of lobbyists that are doing work in the space. There's a lot of specific offices, like Polis's office in Colorado. I mean, that guy loves to be as informed as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, at the national level, given this is still federally illegal,
I have read some proposed regulation on the federal level, though. I believe one is called the Cannabis Administration something Act, and another one is called the MORE Act, where they want to partner with states on how they should create a federal social equity program, so to speak. It's still very new. The industry is, and it's still growing. So social equity isn't the topic of discussion when it comes to a federal level, but there are enough social equity programs throughout every state market to where it's undeniable. Like, this has to be federal regulation at some point. So that's a really good question.
Maybe at some point when it goes more federal, we can work in other states and they can work in these states. I think we're kind of already working something on that, but
interstate commerce,
we're slowly working on things like that right now.
There is. I think the big change we saw at the federal level was of course this proposal move to Schedule 3, which the current administration is obviously very in favor of. Obviously, that would open up different opportunities for new money to enter the space, eliminate 280E, which has been the nightmare of everyone in this room, I imagine, and start actually making this a mature industry that's regulated accordingly at the federal level. There's a lot of pros and cons to if that were to happen, but at least it's good to hear that the administration cares about it enough to be thinking about it and saying that they're interested in decriminalizing, descheduling. We just got to make them aware of the fact that Schedule 3 is not far enough, in my opinion. Patent strategy, of course, has changed as well at the federal level. There are people like AC Moon, who's working with the U.S. Patent and Trade Office to help make cannabis patents and stuff an easy process, to give us the same sort of support. I mean, it's literally the other administrations or the other agencies saying, we're coming to you, you teach us how to do this right so we don't screw it up. That gives me a little bit of forward momentum, but I think the Chevron doctrine decision has been kind of a big potential roadblock in that. If a lot of the agencies at the federal level don't have the power to enforce this stuff, it opens the door for it to get kicked back down to the courts, and then that becomes that whole ball of worms. So, all right. Do we have any more questions? This has got to be the last one, I think. Oh, yeah. One more. So the question is, it's been scary where you are. There's so many social equities retail stores. What was the other part of it? That they're closing. Yeah, I mean, this is unfortunately something we're seeing across the entire country. As it's the same thing we saw in craft beer. Cannabis is going to play out very similarly. If you start to look at some of these data points and signals, it's unfortunate that consolidation is where we start to get to, with the smaller guys starting to fall off if they're not seeing real growth. I mean, if you're at this point and you haven't break even. That's why there is such this huge network of distressed assets that are there. So it's a horrible problem. It's not just a California problem by any means. And, unfortunately, this is how industries evolve. The craft will always still have a place. It's hard. It becomes on the operators to have to carve a lot of that out when you guys will become easy targets for, the MSOs and similar to add to their empires by, adding all these other licenses or IP or whatever they get from these different entities. So yeah, it's definitely something that I think breaks every one of our hearts, but not something, unfortunately, that, we have too much control over in such a competitive market. So. All right. I'd like to give a round of applause to both of our panelists, David and Amir, today. And thank you all for spending your afternoon with us. This has been a real pleasure. And of course, I'll hang around at least until we have to get out of the space at 3. If you want to sit down with me, have me go over your materials, ask me any other questions. But with that said, that's all I got. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jake. Thank you. Okay, everybody, can you hear me? This has been an amazing, amazing time and panel. I want to thank you so much, David and Amir, for your insights and your thoughts. Thank you so much, Jake, for your leadership in this space. We really appreciate you. This has been a part of our series, and it's really important to us to provide these kind of resources for our equity entrepreneurs. We understand that the margins of profit are so razor thin, so any resource that we can provide you, please take advantage of that. We still have our coaching, our one-on-one coaching with our experts. We still have our pro bono and low bono legal services. So take advantage of these free resources, people. It's important. It can really make the difference. We want to thank our Office of Tax Administration. I'm sorry. I want to get the name right here. The licensing team is in the back, and our California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, thank you so much, and our Office of the City Clerk. If you have any questions about voter registration, and if you're not registered to vote, you can do that here, or if you have any questions about making sure that your voting registration is valid, they can answer any questions that you may have. Please take advantage of that. Our licensing team is still here. If you have any specific questions that they can answer now, or they can follow up with you. But again, I want to thank you all for joining us today and participating in this series. We're going to have another summit series next year. We can't afford to do the big events that we've done in the past. I know that a lot of you have been here with the 2 events that we did at the Mayfair House and the Convention Center, but we don't have the budget, folks, so we're trying to use the few resources that we have to have the small, intimate training sessions. So please, when it comes time to our City Council, advocate for us to get funding. We did have $3 million before. We had to beg to just get $1 million this year. And that's outrageous to me when we have hundreds and millions of dollars that the city collects in taxes. And so we just think it's real travesty that they won't reinvest in our programming. But, you know, it takes a village, and for you guys to, you know, let them know that these resources are valuable and that you want that, you know, it's time to vote. And so those things make a lot of difference. Again, thank you so much. I want to thank my team, the social equity team. Cassie, where are you? Ethan, Mario, Marlene, Cairo, thank you all. I couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much to the comms team, Gidget. Jack, thank you so much for being here today. And again, there's some more, there's a lot of sandwiches left. Please have those. We got too many, but please take advantage of that. And we can be here till 3, so please feel free to network. Thank you again. Thank you, Tony Forge, for coming out. We appreciate you too. Thanks.